Okay, in this video I'm going to go over the subjunctive verbs when they are being used in independent or main clauses. And so, we look at the subjunctive uses list. These are the reasons as to why a verb would ever be a subjunctive. It could be a cum clause in that the subjunctive verb might be giving you the circumstance of another action, or the cause, or a concession, indirect question, or clauses, and so forth and so on. Now, if I were to tell you to draw a line, that line would be drawn right here between 18 and 19, and everything above it are the relative, or I should say not relative, are the subjunctive verbs that are in a subordinate clause with subordinating words. Subordinating words. Question words, interrogatives are subordinating words. Ut, a subordinating word. Qui, quo, quod, a subordinating word. And in every one of the conditionals, you will find either a si or an isi, which of course are subordinating words. He runs, but when you add an if to it, it is now subordinated. Now, before we get to the independent uses, I just want to point something out rather quickly. And that is that there's nothing really for me to tell you about these usages of number 16, 17, and 18 outside of just knowing the definition of these words. So, do modo means provided that. Provided that. And when you see de modo, you have what is called a proviso clause. It's giving a provision. I will do something provided that, and that provided that is a provision. You have subjunctive with indications of doubt, and that is then the word when. The next word out of your mouth, if you say Mr. Adams doubts, is going to be the word that, and that is what the when is going to translate as. And then doom, donec, and quoad. When those are then going to be subordinating a subjunctive verb, it is going to all of them mean until, as it were. And so we learned back in chapter 1, doom means while, but when it is with a subjunctive verb, it is going to translate until. Doom until, donec until, and quoad until. That is your first word that you're going to put in for this video, is the word until. U-N-T-I-L, until. Alright, so now let's move on to these independent uses of the subjunctive, and there are only 4 in their number. And in your packet you have, obviously, a study guide for all of these. So as I point out, subjunctives most often appear in those clauses that we see on that front page that are subordinated, and so cum, ut, de modo, examples of subordinated words, but sometimes they are independent. And we start out with what is called the jussive or the hortatory. The jussive or the hortatory comes from ubio, ubere, usiusis, or hortor, hortari, hortata sum, which means to encourage. And those give a sense as to what this subjunctive is. It's like a command, but it's not a full-fledged strong command. It's like a gentle command, or as we were going over it one day in this week, we said it's like off-brand command or mid-command, a command that is not full-throated, as it were. Now, I would argue that of the independent use of the subjunctive, it is A, the most common, and B, the most difficult to recognize because it uses a present subjunctive most of all, and present subjunctives are difficult to recognize. When you have this, what you are going to do is that you will not translate it, as you almost always do, the subject verbs. You are instead going to translate let the subject verb, or if it's second person, may you the subject verb. Now, if it is a first person, either obviously first singular or first plural, you refer to it as a hortatory. If it is a second person or third person, you will refer it to as a jussive from ubio, ubere. So here you can see a couple of famous examples. Vivamus me lesbia atque amenimus. Because vivamus comes from vivo, vivere, and it has that A of we fear giant liar, and it is not being subordinated, you have to translate it let us love my lesbia. And amare is obviously it. We fear giant liar, let us love. So let us live and let us love. Likewise here, yaktet comes from the word yaktare. It's not being subordinated. And so it says, let Iolus throw about himself in that palace, and let him rule regnare in the enclosed prison of the winds, as it were. And so that is the hortatory or the jussive subjunctive. You've got to be able to know, wait, is this verb subjunctive? And recognize those vowels of we fear a giant liar instead of what you would normally have. Now, the second independent use is the deliberative. But before we get on to deliberative, your second item is the word hortatory. 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 The second is the deliberative as an individual use. It is this simple. If the subjunctive word is asking a question directly, it is offering a deliberation. A deliberation in English is very often going to use the auxiliary verb should. So here we see the verb faciat directly asking a question, and so we translate it, what should he do? Here we see a arseret, which is perfect, with a perfect stem and a perfect ending, a remereseret. Should Troy have, because it's perfect, burn in fire? And the word should. Should shows deliberation. We use the word deliberation almost exclusively in what juries do in trying to decide guilty or not guilty. They are deliberating, and so therefore the word that they should use, should I vote guilty, should I vote not guilty? And that is the direct question, the deliberative, in which we will use the word should. That is your second word that you're going to put in, should. Should be easy to spell, S-H-O-U-L-D. Should is what it is going to be. Now, the third is going to be the volative / optative / impossible wish. You need to be familiar with all of them, just like being familiar the panther, catamount, puma, cougar. I need to be able to use terminology that you will know what I'm talking about. And so therefore, I say volative, you say impossible wish. I say optative, you say impossible wish. I say impossible wish, you say impossible wish. Something that you know is an impossibility. Subjunctives express both possibility and impossibility. Subjunctive is the mood of the verb of make-believe, pretend. And so, what we have here is it's easy to recognize, and I would argue of the independent usages, the easiest. And so what we see here is that we would have the word utinam, which is going to translate if only, but if you want to sound more like a British butler, it would say would that, like Jeeves would say, would that I could, sir. It's this impossible wish. So, directly from the poet Catullus, utinam, oh, would that, or if only those ships had, it's pluperfect subjunctive, never touched our shores. Impossible wish, because they're there, they have arrived. Secondly, utinam, if only Aeneas, would that Aeneas not leave? And so here, because of the utinam, we know that it is indeed an impossible wish, and you translate that utinam, if only, or would that, as it were. And so that is your fourth item. Your fourth item, or I should say, yes, your fourth item is going to be utinam. U-T-I-N-A-M. Your final independent use, excuse me, of the subjunctive is going to be the potential subjunctive, in which you will express, here I would want something, or you might say something. And so, if you have a potential subjunctive, more often than not, it'll be an imperfect subjunctive, like we see here, infinitive, present infinitive on the left and ending on the right. And indeed, it shows a potentiality. I would potentially want, potentially you might say. And here we have, obviously, then, just for a bonus in this example, an ut substantive noun clause. The whole ut clause that I've circled in red is turned into a noun, just in the same way you would say, I would want candy, which is a noun, I would want an action. And what is that potential thing that I would want? The act of you coming to Rome. I would want that you come to Rome. Here we have an indirect statement, which remember is going to have an accusative subject and an infinitive verb that is going to occur at the same time. And so therefore, here, since it is a present infinitive, we are starting off with dikos. You might say right now that he is a good man, and as always the case, whenever the infinitive is in a indirect statement, it is a oxymoron of a finite infinitive. And so, that is the independent use of the subjunctive, just to point them out here in the practice passage. All of the clauses are color-coded, and if it is an independent clause, it is translated with, of course, or highlighted with yellow. And so, what should we do? Where should we hide? Because we fear a giant liar, ago, agare, and we fear a giant liar, kelo, kelare. And so therefore, why am I using the word should? They are asking direct questions, and so we say should. Utinam, would that the wolf had never come here. That's an impossible wish. He's here, as it were. We have it here as well, in which main clause not being subordinated, and we have definitely a subjunctive there. Here, a subjunctive because it is ascendere. We fear a giant liar. Do not translate it, Sextus climbs the tree, but rather, let Sextus climb the tree, and let him stay there. It's kind of like a command, but an off-brand, a mid-command, a gentle command of saying let the subject verb. So, there it is, the independent uses of the subjunctive. And your last word to put in is that word you would use sometimes when you are translating the potential subjunctive, might. M-I-G-H-T. So, thanks for watching, and hopefully you understand a little bit better now.